How are you tracking the progress of your recruiters?
Depending on the applicant tracking system, there's a lot of different metrics you can use.
Moving into the three building blocks of you transforming the team from having a little over 100 open jobs down to just about 20 jobs, which is amazing for this company size of over 1,000 employees. So what were those three main building blocks that help you to get there?
I didn't want to just post and pray. We don't do that, right?
What is your favorite, or I guess from your perspective, the most important metric to look at? What's one of the ones that you look at first and maybe the second one?
So I think the first one is.
Welcome to today's show. I'm very excited about today's topic and guest. This topic is near and dear to my heart because it's all about talent acquisition, and I have an expert to help us walk through this topic of how we can decrease that open job ratio. In fact, she's the director of talent acquisition for Methodist Retirement Communities located in the Houston area or in Texas. And Kelly is awesome. She's had over 20 years in the business, just under 3 years with Methodist Retirement Communities, and she was able to take a company with about 1,000 employees and triple-digit job openings, and you're able to get that down to 20, which is amazing. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you, Ross, for having me.
So I started to give a little bit of it away, the fact that you guys have about 1,000 employees and they brought you in to help them to improve their recruitment situation. So I'd like you to give me a little bit more of a summary or a scope of what you were able to accomplish during your time and what you were initially brought in to do.
Absolutely. So, Rollis, when I first started, when they hired me, they didn't have anyone that was necessarily specializing in focused on recruiting. And so, before we have 13 locations across the state of Texas, each campus was doing their own recruiting, and they really, they started to realize that they needed, a team to focus 100% on recruiting. And so they hired myself, and I hired a team of recruiters to get that done. And we've done a phenomenal, I can't, my team is amazing. We've put a lot of things in place in order to, in order to get to talent faster, in order to resurface candidates, and then expand our reach. And so 2.5 years, I can't believe it's been almost 3 years now, and we're where we are.
That's amazing. So now, as you started to build up your team, how did you do that? What was the thought process and how you wanted to bring your team in? Did you bring them all in an office setting? Did you hire them remotely? What was your strategy there?
So my team is remote. We have a team of remote recruiters, and I, recruiting you absolutely can do remotely. They are in Texas, so if they do need to, travel to the different communities for events, they can. But you know, as if anyone's watching this that's a recruiter or has led recruiting teams, you don't hide in recruiting. And so it's very metric driven. You're either sourcing, you're interviewing, or you're sending candidates to interview. So there was no concerns in regards to hiring remote recruiters. They're amazing, and I'm grateful for that, because we were, it really does expand, you cast a wider net, and you can find the best people when you have a little bit more flexibility in location.
Absolutely. And so when you said metrics driven, which I agree, it's very important, how are you tracking those metrics? Are you using your applicant tracking system or some other way? How are you able to if you will, have milestones or track the progress of your recruiters?
Yes, so we absolutely, I mean, our applicant tracking system does track, how many phone screens we do. It tracks really any activity you want to, how, our speed to contact, like it'll give me how long it takes before we contacted someone. So we set a goal that for all clinical positions, they're contacted that day. And so we have those metrics as well. So we can, what you want it to look like. If depending on the applicant tracking system, you can do all kinds of different things, and then you can also do it manually. If you're working on, an Outlook, you can look at how many interviews are scheduled. You can look at how many people, your recruiters are talking to. So there's a lot of different metrics you can use. Ours are obviously sense of urgency, so we've got to contact people within the day that they apply on the clinical side. We have a certain amount of interviews that we do a day, and then we have a certain amount of interviews that we send to the communities. So we have several different metrics that we work off of, and it also gives everyone a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. Look at what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now I'm just curious, what is your favorite, or I guess from your perspective, the most important metric to look at? What's one of the ones that you look at first, and maybe the second one?
So I think the first one is initial contact. So the first one is for me, because I come from, as we talked about, that agency background, is how fast are we talking? How fast are we moving on candidates? So I think my very first one is that sense of urgency measurement, and that is contacting every candidate within the first 24 hours. When we look at our dashboard, is there anyone in there that we haven't touched at the end of the day? And so that is number one, because again, as y'all know, and as everyone knows that's watching this, that speed is the name of the game. And so if you don't have, if you haven't had a conversation with someone, they might have a job tomorrow. So that is my number one absolute. Number two, I would say, is how quickly we're getting them from the first initial contact to the actual hire. So, how fast are we moving candidates through the pipeline? I would definitely say that's number two. So, number one, initial contact. Number two, speed to hire.
Oh, that's a great one. So, okay, so the first one, what I want to ask is, and by the way, a lot of facilities I talk to, they struggle with that, with being able to contact candidates within one business day. So that, kudos to you to be able to do that. With that, why do you think that's important? Why is that? Why is it at the top of your list? You touched on it, but I just want to hear a little more about what you think is, why is that important that they do it within the first day?
I think that number one, it's important because of the talent shortage that we have. There's so much competition now, and it also improves the candidate experience. That's what we're trying and we're working so hard to do, is improve that candidate experience. What is it? 92% that have a great candidate experience will accept an offer and also tell their friends. So I definitely think that keeping that top of mind, but also if you're not contacting them, someone else is. And
Mm.
so I think that, and and it's probably scalable, for us, because we have we don't have that many. We're not a hospital, right? We're retirement communities. And so it is scalable for us. We absolutely can do that. But maybe it's 48 hours for another organization. Maybe it's, what makes sense for you, but what you don't measure is if you don't measure it, you won't pay attention to it. And so that's why we set a goal and we meet our goals.
It's interesting. Yeah, you remind me of the statement. It said, "What gets measured gets done." I think
There
is
you
how it
go.
goes. Yeah,
That's it,
yeah.
Rollis.
I like it. No, I like it. Okay, and then the second thing you mentioned was the speed to hire. Now, one of the things that some of the recruiters I know will come back and say, who watches as well, the hiring managers I work with, they're a little bit slow about interviewing, slow about getting back with me on candidates. So, what advice would you have in those situations where sometimes they're acting quickly, but for whatever reason, the hiring managers are not able to get back with them quickly? What's kind of helped you in your career with that?
No, great question. So when we started the team, I put in place calls with HR and hiring managers, And so really just set that expectation of, if we're not going to hear in real time how the interview went, we have a set call. And so then we get feedback on the candidate. So we also, we hadn't had, we put teams in place. And so that way it felt like we were right down the hall. And so HR or hiring managers can message us and say, loved her or loved him, let's move them forward, or we're going to pass, and this is why. So we've put in, we've used technology, but we've also put in, some hard, some hard meetings, so that way if we can't get it if we can't get it in real time, everyone shows up at the meeting and lets us know, pass or go.
Got it. No, that's incredibly helpful. That's great. You mentioned something about agency experience earlier, and I want to kind of dive in a little bit about that. Tell us about your background with agency and how that's kind of helped you shape your perspective as you moved into this role at Methodist just a few years ago.
I can't believe that I'm over, I've been in the recruiting world for over 20 years. I started an agency, and if anyone's looking to get in recruiting, I say start there because it teaches you so much. You have that sense of urgency. You get creative because if you don't get, the positions filled, then you're obviously not going to commission or get paid. And so it teaches you how to work with your resources and then work outside your resources to get those roles filled. So learned a lot through agency. I was worked my way up, ran 3 offices in Houston, and then but never really in the clinical and healthcare field. And so healthcare really intrigued me. My grandmother, who was near and dear to my heart, was an RN, and I saw the challenges that healthcare was having in the recruiting world. And so I love a challenge. I love an opportunity. And I saw this position open up and dove right in.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that, and I share that same background with you, so I definitely understand and how I can bring in that whole creativity and urgency aspect makes 100% sense. Okay, now moving into the three, like almost like the three building blocks, would you say, of you transforming the team from having a little over 100 open jobs down to just about 20 jobs, which is amazing for this company size of over 1,000 employees. So, if you can, walk us through what were those three main building blocks that help you to get there?
I didn't want to, in agency world, I didn't want to just post and pray. We don't do that, right? And so I wanted to use the resources we had. Now remember, this was a startup. This was a startup group. And so I took what all the candidates we had in our database and started to create marketing campaigns or drip campaigns on the positions we were targeting. So for those that, for those that are just now getting into recruiting and not sure what drip campaign is that's that is something you put together on a consistent basis to target the right individual that you're looking for. And so that's what we did. We created campaigns that, for clinical positions. We looked at, again, we had this ATS for 10 years. And so we have names, we have resumes, we have email addresses, everything that you have, you've got that people have applied with, you have that at your fingertips. And so resurfacing those candidates, candidate that an LVN that interviewed 2 years ago for whatever reason, they either got a job before we offered it, or we filled it before they applied. We've got her information or his information. And so resurfacing those candidates, because a lot of times great candidates aren't on Indeed, they're not on job boards, but we have their information. And when you send an email out and you're showcasing what we're offering, a lot of times, and it has worked for us, that we've attracted the right people by resurfacing those.
That's awesome. And so it's really like it's almost like a gold mine in your backyard that you're tapping into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think we're doing it enough. I think that, we're pumping all this money into job boards, but what we're not remembering is we've got talent at our fingertips that might not necessarily, they know they want a new opportunity, but they see something from Methodist Retirement Communities. They remember they had a good experience as an interviewee. And then, hey, you know what? I might be interested. And so I think that we need to use that more.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, not only is it a gold mine, especially if you treated them right the first time they came through, but I like the part you mentioned about they may not necessarily be on a job board right now, that they could just be doing their thing. They're just going through their normal job, and all of a sudden they get this email from a job they applied before, and it may get them to reconsider you guys. I think it's a wonderful concept that we don't use enough. um, One of the things too that I've also found, you can tell me if you've seen the same thing happen, the same dynamic happen, is maybe they weren't the right fit before because they didn't have the required experience. Let's say you need them to have a certain kind of experience, and they didn't have either enough of it or didn't have it. But now, fast forward, if you've had it for 10 years, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 years later, they may have the experience now. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that a lot of times when applicants come through the first time around, they might not have that specific experience, but again, 2 years in, they've built a new skill set that is aligned with exactly what you're looking for. And again, they might not be on Indeed.
There you go. I love it. They may not be on Indeed, but you already got them in your email. So in that case, you don't need Indeed for that. So I appreciate that. That's excellent. Okay, so definitely having those drip campaigns. How often do you recommend sending this messaging out to these candidates throughout your database? How often are you tapping into these? Is it based on what jobs you have open? Is it over a certain amount of time? What are some of those milestones you're using there?
Great question. So, Rollis, what we're doing is we have a few different, we have a few different campaigns that we run. So, if it's a position that we are, that we're really trying to target, we'll send a specific one out every month. We have a quarterly one that we send out to all different disciplines. That's called "What's Happening at Methodist Retirement Communities." We highlight different employees. We highlight stories. There's a lot of things that we put into that just to stay in front of those candidates, just to keep top of mind, because again, you never know when someone's going to think, oh, you know what, it's time, I'm ready to think about something else. Oh, here's an email from Methodist Retirement Communities, what's going on there? So we do different campaigns for different reasons. McKinsey and Company just produced a survey saying that skill development was number one on candidate perspective list, and so we put together a campaign about how a lot of team members that have come on with us are now 2, 3, 4 levels up. And so showcasing how they've been able to grow with our organization, we really tapped into what candidates are looking for now. So just you can do so much with that. And again, you don't necessarily have to have an applicant tracking system that does it for you. You can use other softwares that will build it for you.
Okay, now you got my mind. You got my mind and my wheels turning here. I think you probably know where I'm going with this. Is those stories you're talking about? It sounds like they're in written form, but what are your thoughts about taking the stories on video and perhaps sharing it within a thumbnail within that email, so them they could tap on it and watch this person's story? You put that in my head as you're talking. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Rollis, that's funny that you asked that because I know that was a conversation that we had. We are definitely, going into 2025, we're wanting to level up the COE. So video is top of mind. That is where everyone's going. Those short, 2 to 3 minute clips. TikTok, I mean, all the rave, right? Like that's what people are wanting to see, and that's definitely the direction we're going to be going.
Love it. No, I love hearing that. And most of, I would say probably 98% of what we do is to get those new folks off of TikTok, like you mentioned, or if it's Instagram or LinkedIn or Google, YouTube. And I love that. That's where we spend most of our time. But I think what your conversation is helping to open up in my mind is how often are we using these same type of videos within the drip campaigns, within those communications with people who have applied before that aren't necessarily, maybe they are on social media, but we're actually able to contact them directly through your own email system. So I want to thank you for that. You actually, I haven't really thought about that, and so you actually put that idea in my head today.
Oh, Rollis, great minds think alike. So I'm glad.
And so another thought I'm thinking of is these stories you're talking about that you've had historically that you've used. Obviously, you haven't used video for that part, but how have you done it? Have you used is it just like a written story with maybe their picture, or how did you do it before?
Yeah, just highlighting them. We have someone that started as a concierge here now that is an assistant executive director. We
Wow,
have, I mean, there's so many, I have so many stories. We have someone that started in maintenance and is now in life enrichment. There are so many things that and ways to serve here, and when they're where they started is not necessarily where they're ending up, and so it's been so fun to be able to showcase the talent that we have here, and also to be able to share this could be you, and so
yes,
I
yes,
we I think we sent that to over 7,000 candidates, I want to say, in our ATS.
wow, that's
Yes,
powerful.
and Rawless, we had the most opens and the most that we've generated the most feedback from that one campaign. So McKinsey and Company, they definitely know what they're doing, because the results showed.
That's great. So tell me about this McKinsey and Company. What is it that they do now?
So McKinsey and Company, that was the survey that they put out. So I think they're a consultant firm
Got it.
that
Okay.
produces certain surveys. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. So being able to get the data, whether it's externally from another company or looking at your data internally, finding out what's more important to your internal employees that you have, plus the ones that you're trying to get, and then creating some type of campaign that's along with that. And that's what I'm hearing. And then what I'll do to add to that is in the groups that I run, for example, on LinkedIn. And in the feedback we've gotten on our videos, is that it's really the ones that involve career progression that get a lot of engagement. And so, um, and when we're looking at the healthcare executive groups we run, they're wanting to know how is it that I can learn more information that will help me take that next level. So that's what they have on their minds is how do I progress in my career? So you're actually tapping in it. You're actually scratching that itch, if you will, by sending out information that talks about career progression. So I want to applaud you for that.
No, thank you. Again, it's really just making seeing what candidates are looking for, and
Yeah,
tapping into that, and wherever you're finding that information out is just really understanding and listening and knowing what the market is, and then creating something around that to attract the right talent.
absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the second thing you mentioned, which I believe was about the referral stuff, right? So tell me about that.
Yes. So we wanted to expand our reach, and with that, we partnered with an organization called Aaron. That it is an app, so employees can easily access our jobs. They can share them on social media. They can share them with their friends. We've been able to double our referral numbers that we had from the last year in a very short amount of time. You know, we it's recruiting on social media, and the best to me, referrals are gold. Good people know good people, and so to give them a tool where it's easy to use, and everyone's on their phones now, and so to give them a tool and to be able to track it, and it has been a great tool for us, and a very minimally expensive tool for us. So it's producing what we need, and we're loving the results.
Yeah, so I met those folks at the last conference that we met, and that was a very interesting concept. I'm intrigued by it. I like the concept of the referral. So I love hearing that it's actually working for you.
Absolutely. What are they? That 92% are, 92% of candidates are on Facebook. And so why not tap into that? Again, referrals, good people know good people, and referrals are gold. So it really does help expand our reach. It gets, if my friend is working here, how often do you talk about where you're working and casually? But when you share it on social, hey, join me, love my organization, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm actually looking. Let me click on that. So
Right.
it's just a real easy way for our employees to share the jobs, but also earn referral bonuses. And so we love our referrals. Erin's been a great organization to work with and to partner with, and we're definitely seeing the numbers, and it's producing results.
That's great. Now, I know she said Facebook. Do they also work with other platforms too, like TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn? Do they work with
Great
the other ones too?
question. When you hit share on your app, every social media account that you have, that you've got, that you already have are a part of, it gives you that opportunity to share. So whether it's Snap, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, also via text. So when you hit share, it'll automatically go to whoever you're trying to send it to. It'll go there as well. Email,
Oh,
you name it, it pops up super easy, and you get confetti. I'm doing a little plug for Erin, but
yeah.
you get confetti when you share. So they have a little celebration moment. So it's been a great tool for us.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it. Okay. Let's talk about the last building block. Do you think that helped you to get to from this triple digits down to just about 20, 21 jobs? What was that third piece of the puzzle?
So the third piece was, I would say, was the transparency and authenticity. And what I mean by that is, we talked about, speed to, initial contact. We talked about, targeting the right people, but then getting candidates prepared for the interview, and really showing who we are. Before they even walk in the door. And so that's been a big effort for us. We've created FAQs for every community so that the candidates have everything they need to know at their fingertips about our organization and about the position that they're applying for. So before they even go into an interview, they receive an email confirmation with those FAQs, with our benefits summary. And again, we're here to answer any questions that they might have. But I think it takes a little bit of the anxiety away. It gives you a peek behind the curtain that a lot of organizations haven't necessarily given. And so I want to make sure that these candidates know who we are, what we stand for, and then also how to set them up for success for the interview. Because Rollis, you and I both know interviewing is it creates a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
So what can we do as a talent acquisition team to reduce that anxiety and to set them up for success? That's what we're here to do.
Love that. Oh, that's so exciting. Okay. So you got my wheels turning again. I think this is probably the reason why you even had a conversation with me about perhaps doing video is this next level, not just for the initial outreach, but also the FAQs, get them to know what the interview process is like. I think that would be great to actually address in video as well. Is that part of what your vision possibly is for the future?
Absolutely, yes. I want videos to where they park, how they're getting into when they walk into the community, who they're asking for, what a day in the life is going to look like. We want I want to to create videos that, so when they're coming and interviewing, they know exactly what they're walking into. They know exactly what to expect. And I
Love
think
it.
that's the biggest thing. We're in the world of where candidates are ghosting us, the relationship's not there. And so those are the things that I want to create for my team and for the organization, because I believe that I work for the best organization out there. And you almost have, as a recruiter, if you don't believe that, there's already an issue,
Yeah.
right? But I want to be able to showcase that and be able to show candidates who we are, what we do before they even walk in the door.
Love that. I love it. And just something as simple as where to park. We
Yes.
have never thought about doing that. And so thank you again for another great idea.
Yes. How much anxiety, you're driving around, our communities can be very overwhelming. And so, they're big. And so driving around and trying to figure out, you're on your lunch break trying to figure out where to park. How can I alleviate that from you for you?
Oh yeah.
Let me send you this video on where to park.
Yeah.
It's a 2 minute, a 2 second video,
Yeah.
but it's reducing again and eliminating so much of that stress. That's what we're here to do as a TA
Yeah,
team.
just that little bit, just showing that extra bit of care could be the difference between them taking the offer and not taking the offer. I mean,
Yes.
I think no, you got me sold. I'm definitely gonna be suggesting this, and I hope anybody watching this takes this seriously because it could be just that small of a thing that could be the difference between that person saying yes to your offer and no to the other one. All things being equal, it just gives them that extra little bit of care. These guys care. These guys
Yeah.
are really doing something extra to make sure I'm okay and that my stress is reduced. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
No, Ross, and before we even interview, we send an email out letting them know that we send an email from the recruiter saying, I'm so looking forward to our conversation, so that we have a video that's already queued up before we even have a phone interview with them, so they see our face, they know who's going to be on the other end of that under in that call, and so we've really done everything we can to show how invested we are in every step of the process.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Before we end this conversation, I do have a very fun question for you. Okay, and I want to see what your choice is. This is a would you rather question. Okay, would you rather direct a movie or star in a movie?
I would rather direct in a movie.
Ah, okay. Why is that?
I do not want to be the star. I want to encourage and empower people to be their best. So definitely would not be the star. Absolutely not. No.
Okay, well, I think you could be the star, but I respect your decision. Okay, now here's another one for you. Would you rather live in a world with no electricity or no animals?
No electricity. How can you have no animals? I have two of my own and I can't imagine the world without them.
Wow, see that shows your heart there too. Because no electricity means no internet, no
I
cell
know.
phones, no
That's
TV.
that is saying a lot because we're in Houston and it's hot. So I hope my animals can understand that.
I know you love your animals, and listen, I really appreciate the time. It shows your love for helping others and the fact that you want to be on this show. So I want to thank you for being on to share this with us. What's a great way for folks to get in contact with you if they have any further questions?
Absolutely. Jobs at mrcraft.org. You can also reach out to me via LinkedIn. There's all kinds of ways.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And my regards to all the folks who work at your company, especially your team of recruiters. Kudos. Great job. Keep up the great work. Look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you, Rollis.